What's up, guys? Welcome to the Man's Solution podcast. Our goal is to help men solve themselves. I'm your host, Anthony Miranda, aka Man of Men. And today we're going to be touching on a really touchy subject. We're going to be talking about the impact of fatherless homes on children. Now, there's a lot to this conversation, right? There's no way I'm going to be able to touch on every aspect in this one episode here. But what this is basically, this is a starting line for us here, for us to begin this conversation with some context. And we can, of course, have more episodes later on and dig deeper into what some of these issues look like. But today, we're going to cover a few things. I want to talk about some of the current issues that our young boys and young men are facing in society. We're going to cover some stats on fatherless homes. Now, if you listen to anything in this podcast, I need you all to listen to these stats that I'm going to cover. They are mind-blowing. So if you listen to anything, listen to these stats. I want to talk about a little. It's really anecdotal evidence, but it's more so it's just a story from some data I collected on my own. And I think that highlights a really good picture about how important fathers are in the home. And I think that's important to talk about. And, of course, I want to tie the stats into like big picture. Like, why does this even matter? Why is, numbers are numbers. What does this mean for us? I want to do some digging in on that. And ultimately, if you listen to the last episode, the goal here is for accountability. Accountability to not only fathers, but mothers as well, right? It takes two to tango. Science say you can I know they're doing some weird things and you can kind of make a kid out of scratch, but normally it's a man and a woman, and that's how you make a child, right? But it takes two. So the goal is to hold both accountable. Everyone needs to be held accountable here. And these numbers that we go over are going to be very eye-opening for us. So let's dive in. First, I want to start off by saying that, personally, this is a conversation that's very important to me. Because personally, I had my father in my life. Outside of some years in prison, he was in my life. But unfortunately, my father was the example of who not to be. So even though he was around, he really caused more issues than he added value, right? So I understand the impact of not having a strong male role model in the household. So we can talk about that some more, but let's start off by talking about some of the issues in society today. Let's think. I want to ask you guys, what are some prominent issues that our men are dealing with today? I would definitely say mental health. There's definitely a mental health crisis, right? Our boys cannot process their emotions effectively. They don't know how to deal with failure, with rejection, right? They cannot control their emotions, their anger, their temperament. It's all out of whack. And of course, that leads to a lot of negative roads that don't lead to a good outcome. Another thing, I'd say physical health, right? Of course, we are the laziest generation. Of course, that has to do with technology and our overall lifestyle changing. Doesn't mean we can't exercise, though. I'm sure you all see very often, sometimes you go to the grocery store and there's kids, young boys, like not even teenagers, or maybe they are teenagers, and they are severely, severely overweight and obese. And when I see that kind of stuff, the first thing I think of is I look at the parents and I'm like, I am so disappointed in you all because you are ruining your child's health because you lack discipline and you lack the ability to hold your child accountable. I'd also say crime, right? When we think of crime, we typically think of males doing the crimes. That's a problem. Of course, our prisons are filled with majority of men. That's a problem. And I'd also say the fourth thing is poverty or a lack of prosperity. Right? Men are they're not winning today. They're not able to produce resources. They're consumers, not producers. And this is due to a myriad of reasons. Maybe lack of education, lack of drive, a lack of ambition, a lack of discipline. But these are all common issues that we see today. So you have mental health, physical health, right? The crime situation, lack of prosperity. I'm sure we can go on and label a few more, but let's just start there, right? Those are some major issues we're facing in society today. So the question becomes, why? Now, of course, there's a lot of reasons why. It's not that simple, but in my opinion, one of the most impactful reasons is our children, our boys, not having a strong father in the home. So let's look at some stats here. This is from the America First Policy Institute. And I'll link this in the description so you all can click in here, read it. The sources are cited, all that good stuff. So I'm going to do my best not to read through this like word for word because that's boring. And this is an audiobook. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. I say good, but it's not very good. So let's look at some stats. Across America, there are approximately 18.3 million children who live without a father in the home, comprising about 1 in 4 U.S. children. The United States has the highest rate of children living in single-parent households of any nation in the world. About 80% of single-parent homes are led by single mothers. 80%. That is insane. At a rate of 23% of children living with one parent and no other adults. The United States stands over 3 times the world average of 7%. That's insane. So look at these numbers in comparison. 3% of children in China grow up without a father in the home. 4% of children in India, 5% in Nigeria, 7% is the world average. We are at 23%. 23%. That is so scary. And like I said, there's a lot of reasons why that is. There's a lot of reasons why. And I don't know if I want to dig into that today. I think that may be fit for another episode, but let's continue. Even for children with a father present in the home, the average school-age boy only spends about 30 minutes per week in one-on-one conversations with his father. For comparison, the same boy on average will spend about 44 hours per week watching television, playing video games, and surfing the internet. Children from fatherless homes fare far worse in metrics of overall well-being and mental and behavioral health. These children are often burdened with lower self-esteem than other children, and they do not understand why their father abandoned them. This leads to a number of emotional problems like anxiety, social withdrawal, and depression. And it also leads to an increased risk of suicide and other forms of self-harm. Overall, children from single-parent families are twice as likely to suffer from mental health problems as those living with married parents. Research also suggests that high-risk children in single-parent homes have nearly 5 times greater a chance of developing mood disorders than those in dual-parent households. In light of these statistics, it is no surprise that 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, and 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. I'm going to read that again. 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, and 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. Fatherless families are 25% more likely to raise children in poverty. Children without fathers are also 10 times more likely to abuse chemical substances. And 71% of all children who abuse substances come from fatherless homes. Those without a father in the home fare far worse in educational achievement than their two-parent counterparts. Fatherless children are twice as likely to drop out of high school than children with both parents at home. It's scary. If you're not alarmed yet, I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe I need to open each one of these other articles here and dig deeper. Fatherlessness likewise has a direct link to teen pregnancy and sexual activity. Roughly 70% of teenage pregnancies come from women raised in fatherless homes. And these same women have significantly higher abortion rates than women raised by both a father and a mother. Criminal activity and fatherlessness are closely related as well. Of all the youths in state-operated institutions, roughly 70% come from fatherless homes, and 85% of all youths in prison come from fatherless homes. Fatherless kids are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to exhibit violent behavior than children from two-parent households. 20 times. 20 times. That's insane. And I'm going to continue. Another unfortunate reality is that America's prisons are full of fathers separated from their children. Of America's roughly 2 million prisoners, over 800,000 are parents. 92% of those are fathers. 92% of inmates in our prisons are fathers. These are scary numbers. These are scary numbers. Now, these numbers really paint a picture on the severity of the problem. And it begs the question, why? Like, why is all this happening? Right? Like, okay, I can understand a fatherless home, like it ties into this number, but what's the reason? Why is this impacting these young boys so immensely? One of the reasons is that as a child, you are a clean slate. From the age of 0 to about 8 or 9 years old, you are being programmed. You are a sponge, and you're just consuming all the information you possibly can, and you're going through these different experiences. What you are doing during those ages is you are programming your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind contains all the stored information of everything you've ever experienced. It's like a computer. As an adult, once your subconscious mind is formed, 95% of your mind is subconscious. The other 5% is conscious. Like what you're conscious on right now is listening to me, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. That's the 5%. The 95% is everything else. Everything else you believe about yourself, everything else you believe about the world, everyone who hurt you, all of your feelings, all of your likes and dislikes, everything. So what happens is, if there's not a father in the home programming the young boy with those positive like ideas, thoughts, habits, beliefs, if that doesn't happen, the child is being programmed to think, like as was mentioned in the article, well, maybe why doesn't my father want me? Why isn't he here? Am I not worth it? Am I not good enough? Right? So now they have self-esteem issues. When you don't have a father in the home, of course, the mother is less likely to be a disciplinarian because she's a nurturer by nature. So if the father's not there to discipline the child never learns discipline, never learns what boundaries are, never learns what accountability truly is. That child grows up entitled. And in doing some of this quick research, I found another article by the Minnesota Psychological Association, and they really break down these issues in different categories. So if we're looking at, let's look at criminal justice involvement here, and you can come in here and look at a few of these. I'm not going to cover every single one. But it's basically looking at these different issues from a psychological standpoint. So when it comes to criminal justice involvement, it says that family structure and the lack of paternal involvement are predictive of juvenile delinquency. The more opportunities a child has to interact with his or her biological father, the less likely he or she is to commit a crime or have contact with the juvenile justice system. In a study of female inmates, more than half came from a father-absent home. Youths who never had a father living with them have the highest incarceration rates, while youths in father-only households display no difference in the rate of incarceration from that of children coming from two-parent households. I'm going to read that again. Youths who never had a father living with them have the highest incarceration rates, while youths in father-only households display no difference in the rate of incarceration from that of children coming from two-parent households. So what this is saying is that a child who lives only with its mother is more likely to be incarcerated. But a child who lives only with his or her father has the same rate of incarceration as a child living with both parents. Only the father, same rate as both parents. And then you have only the mother, incarceration rate increases. Now, what this highlights is the importance, the necessity of having a good father in the home. That is a very powerful statistic there. Now, I think what we see a lot of today is children in single parent households where there's some mothers out there who will not let their child see their father. If you just so happen to be listening, I want you to rewind. I want you to go back and listen to that again. You can't be mad at me because I didn't come up with these statistics. I'm not a statistician. I think that's a term, probably messing that up. But I didn't come up with these numbers. I'm saying this isn't me. These are numbers. These are stats. You can't argue with stats. I know it probably hurts your feelings, but this is the truth. This is accountability here. And this just highlights that children need their father in their lives, regardless of how much you hate him, regardless of how much he irritates you or how little you respect him. If he is putting an effort to be in his child's life, let him. Because if you don't, I know you feel justified in doing so, but you're damaging your child. And for fathers who, if you are listening and you do not care about being in your child's life, I want you to rewind this. Rewind this and listen. Listen to the severity of your behavior and what it's doing and what it will do and can do to your child or your children. This is the severity of what we're dealing with here. Let's look at gang involvement. A higher percentage of gang members come from father-absent homes, possibly resulting from a need for a sense of belonging. A need for a sense of belonging. Gaining that sense of belonging is an important element for all individuals. Through gangs, youth find a sense of community and acceptance. In addition, the gang leader may fill the role of father, often leading members to model their behaviors after that individual. Having a father in the child's life greatly reduces the likelihood of a child joining a gang. Now, I'm from Chicago. If you are also from Chicago, you know this story very well. A lot of our friends ended up joining gangs. A lot of our family members are in gangs or were in gangs. My father was in a gang. And it took me understanding objectively why that happened. After doing some digging, I realized I've come to learn that my father had a really, really tough childhood. His father was an alcoholic. He was abusive, kicked him out their home because he wouldn't follow the rules and deal with the abuse. So it led my father to go look for that sense of belonging somewhere else. My father was looking for that father figure he wanted, not the one he had. And he found that in gangs. And that, of course, led to a series of events that didn't turn out positively. Now, think of how many other young boys deal with the exact same thing. Think of how many of our young boys are going out into the streets, finding these gangs, and they're becoming a part of those communities. Now, those communities, because we as men, as fathers, we fail to instill values in our home. We fail to instill discipline in our home. We fail to set the example in our home. We failed to keep the peace in our home because we failed. Now our children go out into the streets and they find someone else to do it for them. And I'm sure their values don't align with ours. But when you're dealing with a young, impressionable boy who's looking for validation, who's looking for a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, he's looking for a community. He's looking for somewhere, for an environment where he's respected. Boys, here's the thing, boys and men, they need to be respected and admired. They need to feel that they are powerful. That's where their validation comes from. Feeling that they're powerful. But here's the issue. when you're raised in a single parent household, specifically with your mother doesn't typically teach you that you're powerful. She teaches you that she's going to love you no matter what. But love doesn't register as powerfully as respect does for men, even for young boys. It's innate. This is innate. This is inside of us as men, as males. We rather be respected than loved. So if we're only getting the love from our mother, which is important, I'm not saying that's not important. I'm saying we need both. We only get the love, but we get no respect. We never get told how powerful we are and how admirable we are and how much of a respectful young man we are. Then we never feel validated as a young boy. So then we, of course, start to act out because we don't truly understand how powerful we are. So when you see these men who are in prison for whatever the crime, they're acting out a wound from their childhood. When they abuse someone, when they do something crazy like, I can't say this word, the R word. When they partake some of these crazy, ridiculous acts, it's because they're broken. They're hurt. That started from somewhere. That act came from somewhere. They didn't just, 9 times out of 10, they didn't just wake up. Yeah, you have some lunatics out there, right? But most of these boys are broken. They're hurt. They don't understand how powerful they are. They don't understand the damage they can do in the world. So because they don't understand that, they don't understand how to harness their strength, how to harness their anger, how to control their emotions. They don't understand this. That's not even a concept to them because they've never had a father to teach them how to do it. And oftentimes, when you don't have a calm, stoic father inside the household, you may just have a mother who's very stressed out, very emotional. Because the father's gone, maybe mom's now working 2 to 3 jobs. Mom's very stressed. She's probably very irrational. Probably has a lot of outbursts. So now the young boy only sees that, and as he's recording his subconscious mind, he's recording, oh, that's how you handle stress. Oh, that's how you handle a disagreement. Oh, that's what communication is. Got it. So I just outburst, I yell, I scream, I break stuff. Oh, okay, got it. So now when that young boy is now a teenager, a young adult, he doesn't know any better because he's never had dad to teach him. He's never had dad to hold him accountable. This is where this stuff comes from. Now, a while ago, I did a poll on social media. And mind you, I'd said the information I'm giving now is really just anecdotal. This isn't like empirical evidence. But I did a poll on social media and I was asking people, like, what do you think is better? Do you think it's better to just not grow up with a father in your home? Or do you think it's better to have your father in the home, even if he's a nuisance, right? Even if he's an alcoholic or a drug addict or involved in gangs or a criminal, if he's abusive, all things my father were. What's better? And the overwhelming consensus was that these people would rather not have the father in the home at all. Because the people that did have their father in the home who caused a nuisance, all they can think of is all their trauma. They can think of all the bullshit that their father put their mother through, put them through, and they think, man, our life would have been so much better if he wasn't there. I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with that. And then you had the people on the other side of the aisle who were like, hey, I didn't have my father in my life. He was never there. It kind of hurts to know that he wasn't there. You know, I kind of dealt with that and still do deal with my self-worth. But from what I've come to learn from my mother and some other family members is we're really better off that he's not here. So both situations, even though these numbers are saying otherwise, obviously the thing is these numbers, these stats are saying that it's not about having just any father in the home. Ideally, you want a strong father, a good male role model who's focused on his health, who is in control of his emotions and his thoughts, who is focused on his purpose in providing and protecting his family, who's not dealing with bad habits like drugs and alcohol, who's not abusive. This is who these stats are calling out for. These stats are not saying that you would have been better off with your abusive father in the home. You would have been better off with your drug addict father in the home. I haven't found stats that talk about that. I don't know if that's the case. I have no idea. But anecdotally, it seems that's not the case. Anecdotally, it seems that most people would prefer not to have a very, very toxic, dangerous person in the household. But here's the problem. Because it's easy to say, oh, well, my father was a piece of shit. I wouldn't want him in the house anyway. And if you're a single mother, I'm sure it's easy to say, hey, my child's father is a piece of shit. I don't want him in the house anyway. You don't understand. He'd cause a lot more damage than good. I get it. I understand that. I've dealt with it personally. And I can understand how you can see that perspective in the macro. Like if we zoom in to right now, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at this current situation in this time. But when we zoom out objectively, we have to ask ourselves, okay, if your father was a piece of shit, or if your child's father is a piece of shit, why? Why? That's what these stats are pointing at. And then we can go, oh, well, okay, got it. My father was a piece of shit because his father was a piece of shit. Oh, okay, why though? Because his father. Oh, why is that? So when does it end? When does it end? The answer is right now. That's when it ends. It ends with this podcast. It's end with you guys listening right now. It ends with the topics I'm going to be discussing on this podcast. That's where it ends. It ends right now. What we're doing here is we're breaking generational curses. All the bullshit that our parents and our grandparents just kind of handed off to us, that's over with. It's over with. Because now, luckily for us, we have this beautiful thing called the internet and statistics and books and podcasts. So our parents and our grandparents, well, depending on your age, of course, you're most likely around my age if you're listening to this. Even then, most of our parents didn't have access to this kind of stuff. So when they were raising you, they were just doing the best they could with what they had. They didn't understand what effective communication was. There was really probably no books about that, or at least they didn't have access to that kind of stuff. There was no guideline on how to effectively parent, on how to deal with addiction. There's no guidelines for that stuff. You didn't even know there were answers. For most people, you don't even realize it's that much of a problem. If you're one of our grandparents, you're addicted to alcohol, that's not a problem for you. Like you may instinctively know you should stop, but you never you never were able to see numbers like this that I just showed you guys. You never saw those numbers. So you don't know how big of an issue it is. We have access today. So luckily for us, we're spoiled. We get to look at these issues objectively and not just say, like me as an individual man, if I have a drinking problem, do I say, am I looking at it from, oh, do I have a drinking problem? Or do I say, man, I have a drinking problem and look how that affects my home, children, my health. There's a bunch of data that shows how bad that is for me and for my family. It's not just I have a drinking problem. It's that I'm destroying myself. And when I'm destroying myself, look how it affects the people around me. I didn't even realize there was a connection there, but apparently there is a big one. These are the issues that we have awareness on. So we're lucky. We're lucky. We're blessed, and I'm grateful to have access to this information. You all should be as well. So thinking objectively, of course, the question becomes, what do we do about this, right? It's a big problem. It's a lot of problems. What's the answer? And there is no short, black and white, textbook answer outside of ensuring that if you're a father or if you're planning on having kids soon, you need to be doing everything in your power to be the best version of yourself that you possibly can. And ensuring that you pour your cup into your children as best as you can. As best as you can. You're not going to be perfect. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for a change in trajectory. So what this means is if you are a father, if you're planning to be one, make sure you're on your shit. What this also means is we need to talk about the importance of having unplanned pregnancies. I myself am victim of that. I had my first child at 19 years old, way too young. Way too young. So now my daughter's mother and I are in a situation where we co-parent. We have a great relationship, talk to her every day, but I'd be a damn fool to think that my daughter is not impacted by not having both of her parents in the same household. I'd be a fool. Now, I'm not speaking from authority. I'm speaking from experience. We live in a generation today where it's fun to just have a ton of unprotected sex, and it doesn't really matter who you get pregnant because you can just get an abortion, you can just do this, you can just do that. And as we're seeing, that mindset's not panning out very well for us because it's leaving a lot of our children with fatherless homes. It's leaving a lot of our teens getting pregnant a bit too early. Because here's a reality for you men out there. Your prefrontal cortex, like the front of your brain that's able to weigh risk versus reward, make good decisions, all that stuff, it's not fully developed until you're about 25. So you're not able to really make good decisions for yourself until you're around 25. And if you're under 25, you'll see that point. Once you get to that age, you'll have like this awakening, like, oh man, I need to get my shit together. I need to stop doing this. I need to stop doing that. I need to do this and do that. You'll wake up one day. You'll see. And if you're over 25, you'll know what I'm talking about. Most likely you've hit that point and you're progressing, or you've hit that point and now you're living a life of guilt because you know you have the awareness that you should be doing better, yet you still don't. And that eats at you inside. I know it does. But you have the awareness. Also, when it comes to raising a child, just financially, their children are expensive. Life's expensive. So raising a child is very, very expensive. So if you're not even in a position where you can provide for yourself, if you can't even take care of your own responsibilities, how are you going to bring a child on this earth and provide for your family? Ideally, you want to be in the best possible position to do so. So what does that mean? That means waiting. That means waiting until you're more mature, you're more established financially. You also need to have a set of values in place. If you don't know what you value, then you have no guardrails. Picture like bowling. When you go to the bowling alley, you put the guardrails up. Your values are your guardrails. You only make decisions that align with your values. If you don't have your values in place and you don't have direction in life, that means you're getting pulled in every which way. And what that means is that if you don't have values, then your child's not going to have values. And that means that your child is going to get pulled in every which way direction. They don't know what's right, what's wrong. And again, like the example we talked about earlier, if you don't teach them, I guarantee you a gang will. I guarantee you they'll have no problem. You also need to be physically and mentally fit. Otherwise, you end up like the child in the grocery store example, where the child's obese and you look at the parents, well, they are too. Why do you think that is? Because they passed on their bad habits. They passed on their limiting beliefs to that child. So if you don't have your own shit in order, understand, man, when you have kids, it's really just a copy and paste. You and the woman you are involved with, it is a copy and paste. Genetically, you are copy and pasting both of your genetics and you're creating a child. Based on your current level of consciousness, your current health, your current emotional state, all of that stuff is getting handed off to your child. So if you're not in the ideal situation you want to be in, if you don't want to copy and paste this forever, then think twice about what you're doing. Not only are you copy and pasting your genetics, but you're also passing on, you're putting your child in an environment. Because here's the thing, who you are as a person is based off of three different things. It's your genetics, it's the environment you were raised in, like we talked about, programming your subconscious mind, and then it's the free will that you have as a man. Your own free will to think and act as you feel is really as you feel. That's it. Think and act as you wish. So those three things: genetics, environment, free will. You're having a child based on who you are right now. You are handing off those genetics to that child. Based on the type of person you are right now, you are having that child in a certain type of environment. Is the woman you're with aligned with who you are as well? Do you guys communicate effectively? Do you have a good, strong relationship? Do you love her? Does she respect you? Do you guys both value the same things for the most part? If not, can you compensate for that? Is that okay that she values something differently than you do? Is she willing to follow your lead? Right? All these things need to be taken into consideration because both of you are going to create the environment that your child is in. And that is going to program their subconscious mind. So here's the thing. What most people are doing today is they're handing off horrible genetics. They're raising their children in horrible environments. And then they're leaving their child with free will and just hoping and praying that they figure it out. Just hoping and praying that they can make the right decisions to improve in their life, that they can get rid of all the bad habits they picked up from your leadership as a man, that they can just magically heal from all the trauma that you caused as a man. That's what most fathers are doing today. And they're failing. So then, when our child, who with their free will alone is doing their best with what they've been given, goes out into this world and they end up on drugs, they end up in prison, they end up pregnant, they end up committing suicide, whatever it may be, then we're sitting there asking, what happened? Oh man, why couldn't they just get it together? Oh, why couldn't they just make better decisions? Why couldn't they? It's on us as men and as fathers to take accountability for how we set our children up in the world, how we set up our families in the world. Because here's the thing. When we raise healthy, strong, healed, happy children, they grow up happy, healthy, strong adults, and they make the world a better place. When you deal with those people who are very toxic, when you deal with those people who have wronged you, when those people out there that you know who have committed heinous crimes, where do you think that came from? It was programmed into them. Their pain was programmed into them. Now, I'm not saying they can't be accountable for their own situation. Two things can be true at the same time. So I'm saying that you can have a very negative childhood that didn't empower you to live the best life possible. But it's also true that you are 100% accountable for your situation now. And some of you men, some of you fathers may be in that situation right now. Oh man, I'm doing my best, but my father didn't give me the tools that I needed to be a successful man. He was abusive. He used to beat my mom. He was really abusive to me. So now, I have a hard time connecting with my son because listen, man, it's still on you. It's on you. Like I said, we're here to heal. We're here to grow. We're here to develop and solve ourselves. So it's up to us to get out of our own way. And oftentimes these stories we tell ourselves and play victim, that's us getting in our own way. And this is why I went through these stats, because when we create these narratives in our mind, when we tell ourselves these stories about how tough our life is and how, our childhood was so rough and why we're never going to win, and this is what's keeping us back, we are just being a part of these statistics here. That's all we're doing. We're ensuring that we set our children up for success. That's what we're doing when we play victim. When we don't choose to get out of our own way, when we don't choose to take accountability, we are carrying the generational curse that was handed off to us, and we're passing it on to our children. You need to deal with your demons. You need to deal with them. Because if you don't deal with your shit, your children will. And that's the problem. And if you can't see that, then those of you who went through very traumatic experiences in your childhood, that is what happened to you. Your parents did not deal with their trauma, so you had to deal with it. Now, unless you want your children to go through the same things, you need to take accountability, and it ends with you. The impact that fatherless homes has on our boys ends with us as men. It ends with us. It ends today. This is the beginning of the journey. This is the beginning where the trajectory changes. This is where it changes. This is where it all changes. And if it's going to be change, it's 100% up to us. No one else is going to do it. It's not up to women. It's not up to the mothers. It's up to men to lead, to make good decisions, to build good habits, to set in place good values and principles for our families to follow. It's up to you as a man to do that. And if you run across a woman who's not willing to get on board with your ship, your values, your principles, then she's not the woman for you. You drop her. Because if she's not on board with you now, she's not going to be on board with you when you have a child and when you get married. Doesn't happen like that. If she's not on board from day one, then she's off the ship. Because what most men are doing today is they run into women who's not on board with their plan, who's not following their lead, and because they have no self-control and they don't want to lose out on all the physical aspects of the relationship, they stay in that relationship, and then they end up having a child. And then what happens? Because she was never on board with your values, with your principles, the relationship strays. You guys spread apart. Might be a toxic situation with you all, but the child suffers. Happens way too often. So I think I'm going to cut it here. We've been on almost an hour now, but this is just an intro. I want to dive way deeper into this topic because I believe wholeheartedly that when we heal the home, when we have a strong male role model in the home, a strong father, and a very loving mother in the home, and they're working in unison, they love and respect each other, they have good values and principles in place. When these two people have a child, they pass on that love, they pass on that respect, they pass on the values and principles that they set for their family, and that child grows up and changes the world, has a immensely positive impact on the world. And of course, there's always outliers. But when it comes to odds, when it comes to statistics, the question becomes, what's going to give us the best odds for this to happen? How do we give ourselves as a society the greatest advantage to being happy and healthy? The way we do that is by having strong, healthy men, strong, healthy fathers in our homes. But I'm going to cut it here. I hope you all enjoy this. I know this could have been a very triggering podcast for some of you. I'm sure you all have very strong opinions on this topic. So I encourage you, if you listen all the way through, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. I really want to know what you think. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find us anywhere, anywhere else you listen. But, we're going to keep diving into these conversations as we move forward. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all really got to see the big picture here. And you all take care. I'll see you all in the next episode.